How's it going, guys? My name's Wilson. Giannis has been the best player in the 2020 regular season, putting up insane numbers, around 30 and 13 in only 31 minutes of playing time. The Greek Freak continues to lead the Bucks on pace for 70 wins. It's 99% certain the 6'11 power forward will repeat for MVP, but almost 7 years ago, nobody had any idea who was going to end up the best player in the 2013 draft class, arguably the weakest class of the 2010s decade. There's only been 3 total All-Stars to date. The only other 2 to make it thus far, Victor Oladipo and Rudy Gobert. While a bunch of busts didn't pan out, many guys who's bounced around because Giannis was an unknown prospect from Greece. Experts compared him to Nicholas Batum, an athletic wing with a 7'3" wingspan, very mobile but very frail at around 200 pounds when he got to the league, lacked a jump shot, viewed as one of the biggest mysteries. It wouldn't have been surprising if Giannis was selected anywhere between 5th to even being a late first. Drafted 15th overall, every player drafted ahead of him all played college ball. Let's take a look at 7 busts picked ahead of Giannis and how their careers went 7 years later. Starting with the worst of the worst, Anthony "Bust" Bennett, who'll go down as by far the worst first overall pick in modern NBA history. Yes, even worse than Kwame Brown. I said it. Bennett's career has been an absolute travesty. Coming into the league was so bad for the Cavs, you knew everything went wrong on draft day. After being selected, Bill Simmons couldn't contain himself.
The Cleveland Cavaliers select Anthony Bennett.
A classic priceless reaction. Even worse, after shaking the commissioner's hands, Shane Battier mentioned some of the greats, including his name.
Jabbar, Magic, LeBron, Bennett. How's that sound?
Sounds pretty good, man.
Which was likely why Battier's career with ESPN didn't last very long. Bennett was a nightmare from the start. Shot under 36% from the field as a rookie, averaged just 4 points, 3 rebounds, had no skills whatsoever, lots of bricks and missed shots, just absolutely dreadful on all cylinders. Cleveland couldn't wait to get rid of him. After a year, dealt to Minnesota, part of the Kevin Love deal. Bennett continued to struggle, got waived after his sophomore season, assigned to the G League Raptors team. After being signed, his career was already in jeopardy. Didn't even last a whole season with Toronto. Was waived after averaging a pathetic 1.5 points on under 30% shooting. Bennett should have never been drafted in any round, to be honest. The Nets gave him a chance after, put up 5 points a game, still barely improved and had no real position. Wasn't quick enough to be a 3, wasn't tall enough to be a 5. Brooklyn got rid of him January 9, 2017. Phoenix signed him after, but waived him after 3 weeks. Would spend time in the G League for a couple seasons. 2 years later, Houston gave him a shot, but waived him during training camp in October 2019, suffered a knee injury, and had to undergo surgery, losing his chance to make the team. He likely wouldn't have made it anyway. At least he made $16.5 million for his career. Started only 4 of 151 total games, hasn't been picked up or heard from since. Cody Zeller of the Charlotte Hornets, who's been with the franchise his whole career so far. After an amazing college career at IU, was even compared to the likes of LaMarcus Aldridge. The team gave him a 4-year, $56 million extension in 2016. Another one of those bad contracts for a bad team, ultimately leading Kemba out the door. The 7-footer hasn't been much since coming into the league, averages around 10-7 for a team with no chance making the playoffs anytime soon. At least he's a solid pick and roll guy who sets good screens, but still can't consistently knock down the 3, still not strong enough on the post, and gets overwhelmed by bigger guys in Rudy Gobert and Hassan Whiteside. In most drafts, Zeller would be closer to being selected around 10th, but because 2013's class was so weak, there weren't many options. After his tenure with Charlotte, I see Zeller staying for a couple more years in the NBA for a vet minimum. Drafted right after Zeller, Alex Len, a complete waste of a pick for the Phoenix Suns, a little worse than Zeller. The 7-footer played 2 years at the University of Maryland, shown a lot of upside and was terrific on defense with a big body, drew comparisons to the likes of Jonas Valanciunas and Zydrunas Ilgauskas, wasn't viewed anywhere close to the most talented player in the draft, had an awful start to his career, lasted 5 seasons for a dysfunctional Suns franchise, put up averages of 7.2 points, 6.5 rebounds, a block, couldn't shoot, lacked a consistent post game. His last 3 seasons in Phoenix, the team never won more than 24 games. With many coaching changes, even an old Tyson Chandler was signed to a $50 million deal, taking minutes away from from Lin, but had a fresh start after signing with the Hawks in 2018 free agency, put up his best scoring numbers of 11.1 points, improved his outside shooting as a role player, wasn't as impressive this season. Traded to Sacramento, Lin still gets around 20 minutes a game and still 26 years old, will be a free agent this summer and fighting for his NBA career. Anything more than a minimum contract would be shocking at this point. The following pick, Nerlens Noel, taken by the Pelicans 6 overall, traded to the Sixers with a pick for Drew Holiday and Pierce Jackson. As a freshman, there were many chatters that Noel could have potentially been the #1 pick. The disbelief in his face said it all when Anthony Bennett was picked ahead of him. Almost towards the end of his freshman season, the 6'10 center suffered a torn ACL, a devastating blow as an elite shot blocker who's an explosive athlete, pretty much a poor man's version of Anthony Davis, who Kentucky had the season before. Noel's ceiling wasn't as high, his defensive upside drew many comparisons to Dikembe Mutombo, but offensively had a weak post game, no jump shot, and needed to add strength at only 220 pounds after missing his entire rookie season. Showing some defensive upside, put up 10.5 points, 8 rebounds, almost 2 steals, 2 blocks his first 2 seasons, which was solid, but continued to have knee problems, sent to the G League on rehab assignments, combined with having Joel Embiid and Jahlil Okafor on the same team competing for minutes. The dissatisfied Noel didn't like it. While Embiid proved right away he was the way better player, Okafor and Noel's confidence fell apart. Both ended up leaving Philly. Traded to Dallas for Justin Anderson, that experience didn't work out. Noel's worst moment of his career, after 22 games with the Mavs, averaged over 10 and 7. The big man was offered a 4-year whooping $70 million deal, but turned it down. An absolute travesty of a decision, which backfired heavily. Ended up signing a 1-year, $4.1 million qualifying offer to return to Dallas. Still had no offensive game, making it more evident Noel's only a bench guy. Went on to average under 5 points in 30 games, had a dumb injury, signed 2 1-year minimum contracts with the Thunder, barely made any impact last season, but putting up around 8 and 5, a block and a half on an efficient 69% shooting in 2020. At 25 years old, Noel's having a decent year, playing alongside Chris Paul, but it doesn't seem like he'll ever live up to the expectation of the bigs he was compared to, such as Tyson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan, and Clint Capella. The 9th overall pick, Trey Burke, after a nice run at Michigan, the 6-foot point guard's been a journeyman, had decent numbers with the Jazz, averaged almost 13 points his first 2 seasons, made all-rookie first team, thought he was part of the long-term plan for the Jazz, but after they selected another bust in Dante Exum 5th overall, who plays the same position, Burke admitted it messed with his mind. Head coach Tyrone Corbin got fired, was hurt by the distractions, heavily underperformed. Utah traded him to Washington for just a 2nd rounder, barely played as John Wall's backup, signed with the Knicks and rejuvenated himself a little bit. After a season and a half, traded to Dallas, part of the Porzingis package, didn't get much minutes, picked up by the Sixers in summer 2019, waived again just after 25 games. Now at 27 years old, it's unclear where he will go from here. If no team signs him, overseas would be a great option. Michael Carter-Williams, who was amazing as a rookie, averaged over 16, 6 and 6, joining the likes of Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson, was already 22 years old, and being the main option for the tanking Sixers team, he was a poor shooter. Hinkie traded him to the Bucks on a 3-team trade for just a pick. His production and confidence declined heavily. Traded for an average Tony Snell to the Bulls, then signed with Charlotte, Houston, and now Orlando. Trey Burke made over $13 million for his career. MCW around $16 million. Still can't really shoot. I'd be shocked if anyone signs him next season. Drafted right before Giannis, Shabazz lied about his age. Muhammad was picked by Utah, traded to the Wolves with Gorgie Deng and Trey Burke. The 6'6" forward just lasted 5 seasons in the NBA, being held back an extra year in school to give him a leg up against the younger players in class of 2012, one of the weakest high school classes all time, viewed as the potential #1 pick, being 20 years old instead of 19 in college. And undersized at the 3, if his age reports weren't found, he probably would have been the top 5 pick. Disappointing from the start, put up empty stats on a bad Wolves team, picked up by the Bucks in 2018 and out the league by 25. His worst moment, rejecting a 4-year, $40 million extension in 2016. Muhammad commanded as much as $20 million per season, settled for the minimum instead, just like Noel. Another travesty of a decision, made $10.5 million for his career, has been playing overseas in China ever since. Before this season, I was gonna include Ben McLemore, but he's bounced back in a great way, producing for the Houston Rockets as a role player, averaging 10 a game, knocking down threes, will be paid $2.2 million next season, was the 7th pick of the 2013 draft. The only players drafted ahead of Giannis that weren't bust: Victor Oladipo, picked 2nd overall, became an all-star; Otto Porter Jr., a solid role player, not a star, but produces double-digit scoring; KCP, who's also a decent role player, knocks down shots; CJ McCollum, a very good player; and Steven Adams, a solid starting center. Thank you so much for watching this video. More great stuff coming soon. See you next time.